The Amish have a way of growing fruit trees that thrive even in pots. With 25 clever tricks, what's remarkable is how their methods work just as well in small spaces, right inside simple pots at home. No chemicals, no fancy tools, just patience, balance, and a few secrets that make homegrown fruit easier than you think. Start small, but strong. The Amish approach to growing fruit trees in containers begins with bare root or young grafted saplings, instead of full-sized nursery trees. Starting small gives these trees a massive advantage because they adapt to pot life far faster than mature specimens that struggle with the transition. Young saplings develop root systems specifically designed for their container environment rather than fighting against constraints they weren't prepared for. The Amish always inspect roots carefully before any planting happens, looking for damage, disease, or circling patterns that signal problems. Buying a tree without checking its roots is like buying a car without looking under the hood. Eventually, something's going to surprise you. Damaged roots get trimmed away cleanly with sharp pruners because ragged edges invite disease and slow healing. Circling roots that wrapped around themselves in the nursery pot get straightened or cut to prevent them from strangling the tree as it grows. The planting technique itself reveals traditional wisdom where pots get filled only halfway initially, allowing the tree's base to sit slightly elevated above the rim. This positioning creates superior drainage since water naturally flows away from the trunk instead of pooling around it. The Amish press soil firmly around the base using their hands rather than stomping with boots, which would compact the soil too much and suffocate developing roots. This gentle but secure pressing removes air pockets that cause roots to dry out while maintaining the loose structure that allows oxygen to reach underground growth. Hand pressing also lets you feel the soil texture and moisture level directly, providing information that helps judge whether the mix is right. The careful attention to root health at planting time establishes strong foundations that support years of productive growth, while rushing this stage creates problems that become harder to fix as trees mature. Root inspection also reveals the overall health of the nursery tree, showing whether it received proper care before purchase or suffered neglect that will haunt future growth. The timing of planting matters just as much as the technique, with early spring being ideal when trees are still dormant but soil has warmed enough for root activity to begin immediately. Fall planting works in mild climates but risks exposing young trees to winter stress before they've established adequate root systems. Bare root trees cost significantly less than potted specimens while often establishing faster since their roots weren't confined in temporary containers. The Amish soak bare root trees in water for several hours before planting, rehydrating roots that dried slightly during storage and transport. This pre-planting soak also helps identify any dead roots that need removal before the tree goes into its permanent container. Grafted saplings show clear union points where desired variety meets rootstock, and the Amish ensure this graft stays well above soil level to prevent the top variety from developing its own roots. Keeping the graft exposed maintains the dwarfing characteristics that make container growing practical in the first place. Picking the right tree for containers. Dwarf and semi-dwarf fruit tree varieties make container growing practical because their root systems naturally stay compact. The Amish select these smaller varieties specifically bred for restricted spaces rather than fighting against full-size trees that want to spread. Standard fruit trees develop massive root systems that no pot can accommodate comfortably, leading to stunted growth and disappointing harvests. Dwarf varieties produce full-size fruit despite their smaller stature, which means you get the same quality in a manageable package. Amish growers favor hardy varieties that tolerate temperature swings, wind exposure, and the stress that comes with container life. Cold hardy selections survive winter conditions that would kill more delicate varieties, making them suitable for year-round outdoor growing in many climates. Citrus trees thrive in pots when given proper winter protection, producing lemons, limes, and oranges even in areas with cold seasons. Fig trees adapt remarkably well to containers and actually produce better when their roots face some restriction. Apple varieties grafted onto dwarfing rootstock stay compact while delivering abundant crops of full-sized apples. Peach trees in containers give you fresh summer fruit without requiring the massive space that orchard peaches demand. The variety selection process considers not just size, but also pollination requirements, since some trees need partners while others fruit independently. Choosing self-pollinating varieties simplifies container growing by eliminating the need for multiple trees. The Amish learned through generations of observation which varieties handle pot stress best and still produce reliable harvests. Getting the variety right at the beginning saves years of frustration from fighting against trees unsuited to container life. A dwarf apple tree in the right pot produces fruit for decades, while a poor variety choice struggles from day one and never reaches its potential. Disease resistance also factors into variety selection, since healthy trees require less intervention and produce more consistently. The Amish prefer older heritage varieties proven over time rather than chasing new introductions without established track records. Rootstock selection determines ultimate tree size even more than the fruiting variety grafted onto it, with designations like M27 creating the smallest apples, while M9 produces slightly larger but still manageable trees. Understanding these rootstock codes helps match trees to available container sizes and growing conditions. Chill hour requirements also guide variety choices, since trees needing extensive cold periods struggle in mild winter climates, while low-chill varieties disappoint in cold regions. The Amish match varieties to their specific climate zones rather than hoping unsuitable trees will somehow adapt to conditions they weren't bred for. Multi-grafted trees carrying several varieties on one rootstock offer diversity in small spaces, but require careful pruning to prevent vigorous varieties from dominating weaker ones. Fruit ripening times spread harvest across longer periods when multiple varieties grow in the same garden, extending fresh fruit availability from early summer through late fall. Choosing the perfect pot. Container selection matters enormously because the pot becomes the tree's entire world for years. The Amish prefer clay, wood, or thick ceramic pots over plastic because these materials regulate temperature far better. Plastic pots in summer sun turn roots into a sauna nobody signed up for. Clay breathes naturally, allowing excess moisture to evaporate through the walls while keeping roots cooler during hot weather. Wooden containers provide excellent insulation against both heat and cold, creating stable conditions that roots appreciate. Thick ceramic holds middle ground between clay's breathability and wood's durability, offering long-lasting performance with attractive appearance. Depth matters more than width for fruit trees since roots grow downward, seeking stability and moisture. The Amish look for containers at least 18 to 24 inches deep, giving roots adequate space for healthy development. Shallow pots restrict root growth too much, creating stunted trees that never reach their productive potential. Drainage holes are absolutely non-negotiable because fruit trees sitting in waterlogged soil develop root rot quickly. Every pot needs multiple drainage holes in the bottom, not just one small opening that clogs easily. The Amish often drill additional holes in purchased containers to ensure water escapes freely after watering. Reused wooden barrels appear frequently in Amish gardens, providing sustainability while offering ideal size and insulation properties. Old whiskey or wine barrels work perfectly after drilling drainage holes and giving them a good cleaning. These barrels last for many years when elevated slightly off the ground to prevent bottom rot. Container size should match tree size, starting with smaller pots for young trees and graduating up as they grow. A young sapling in an oversized pot struggles because the excess soil stays too wet and doesn't develop proper structure. Proper pot selection creates the foundation for healthy growth, while poor container choices limit trees regardless of how well you care for them afterward. Weight becomes a consideration for pots that need moving seasonally, with lightweight options better for frequent relocation. The Amish balance durability with practicality, choosing heavy clay for permanent positions and lighter wood for mobile setups. Pot color influences root temperature significantly, with dark containers absorbing more heat than light-colored ones that reflect summer sun. White or light-colored pots keep roots cooler in hot climates, while darker containers can benefit cold region growers by capturing extra warmth. The interior surface texture of containers affects root growth patterns, with smooth surfaces causing more circling than rough textures that encourage roots to grow downward naturally. Drainage layer materials like gravel or broken pottery pieces at the pot bottom were once common practice, but the Amish now recognize these actually impede drainage by creating false water tables where soil meets stone. Modern understanding shows that proper soil mix and adequate drainage holes eliminate any need for bottom layers that reduce usable soil volume. Pot feet or risers that elevate containers off the ground improve drainage while preventing staining of decks and patios from water runoff. These risers also discourage root growth through drainage holes into the ground below, keeping trees truly containerized and mobile. Amish soil mix formula. Soil becomes a living ecosystem in Amish gardening philosophy rather than just a growing medium you purchase in bags. They build custom mixes that provide everything fruit trees need for long-term health and productivity. The basic formula combines topsoil, compost, and sand in proportions that balance moisture retention with drainage and aeration. Topsoil provides mineral content and structure, compost adds nutrients and beneficial organisms, while sand creates air spaces that roots need. Heavy garden soil alone suffocates container roots because it packs too densely without the natural loosening that happens in ground beds. Roots need air as desperately as they need water, and compact soil cuts off oxygen that drives root respiration and nutrient uptake. The Amish add aged manure or worm castings to their soil mixes, providing slow-release nutrition that feeds trees for months. Fresh manure burns roots with excessive nitrogen, which is why aging it for at least 6 months is essential before using it. Worm castings contain not just nutrients, but also beneficial microbes that improve soil health and help trees resist disease. The texture of finished mix should feel loose and crumbly when squeezed, holding some moisture while allowing excess to drain freely. Testing mix quality involves watering it thoroughly and observing how quickly water drains through, with ideal drainage taking a few minutes rather than seconds or hours. Commercial potting mixes work in a pinch, but lack the living components that Amish soil contains from compost and castings. The microbial life in properly made soil continues working throughout the growing season, breaking down organic matter and making nutrients available. Soil building requires effort up front, but creates superior growing conditions that chemical fertilizers can't replicate. Trees grown in living soil develop stronger immune systems and handle stress better than those in sterile commercial mixes. The Amish also adjust soil pH based on specific tree requirements, adding lime to raise pH for apples or sulfur to lower it for blueberries. Understanding soil chemistry helps create optimal conditions where nutrients remain available rather than getting locked into forms trees can't access. Pot placement matters. Sunlight drives photosynthesis that powers growth and fruit production, making location decisions critical for success. Most fruit trees need 6 to 8 hours of direct sun daily to produce abundant harvests and maintain health. Trees placed in shade expecting full harvests are like athletes training on the couch expecting championship performance. The Amish observe sun patterns throughout the day before committing to permanent pot locations, noting where shadows fall and light lingers. South-facing positions in northern climates receive maximum sun exposure, while east-facing spots provide gentler morning light. Western exposures can be intense with hot afternoon sun that stresses trees during peak summer heat. Rotating pots seasonally ensures even light distribution around the entire canopy, preventing lopsided growth toward the sun. The Amish physically turn containers every few weeks during the growing season, promoting balanced branch development. Protection from harsh winds prevents physical damage to branches and reduces water loss through leaves. Windbreaks created by buildings, fences, or other plants help container trees survive storms without breaking. Cold weather positioning becomes crucial in winter when trees need protection but still require some light exposure. Pots moved near barn walls or south-facing house sides benefit from radiated heat that moderates temperature extremes. The thermal mass of buildings absorbs daytime heat and releases it at night, creating microclimates several degrees warmer than open areas. Amish growers group multiple pots together during cold months, creating shared warmth and wind protection through clustering. Mobile containers offer flexibility impossible with in-ground trees, allowing adjustments based on seasonal needs and changing conditions. Observation guides placement decisions more than rigid rules, with adjustments made based on how individual trees respond. Trees showing sun stress get moved to slightly shadier spots, while those growing too slowly might need more light exposure. The ability to optimize placement throughout the year gives container growers tremendous advantage over fixed orchard positions. Microclimate awareness helps the Amish identify spots where cold air pools or heat reflects intensely, avoiding problem areas while maximizing favorable locations. Understanding how air drainage works prevents placing trees in frost pockets where cold settles and damages tender growth during shoulder seasons. Watering the Amish way. Early morning watering allows maximum absorption before heat causes evaporation that wastes water and leaves roots thirsty. The Amish water at dawn when temperatures are coolest and plants are naturally preparing for active daytime growth. Morning watering also means foliage dries quickly as the day warms, reducing fungal disease that thrives on wet leaves overnight. Rain barrels positioned near gardens collect free water while avoiding the chemicals often added to municipal tap water. Well, water provides another chemical-free option that many Amish prefer for its purity and natural mineral content. Chlorine in tap water can harm beneficial soil microbes that help trees absorb nutrients and resist disease. Deep watering encourages roots to grow downward, seeking moisture rather than staying shallow and vulnerable to drought. The Amish water until it runs from drainage holes, ensuring the entire root zone gets saturated rather than just the surface. Shallow watering creates weak root systems that can't support trees during stress periods or heavy fruit loads. Frequency depends on weather, pot size, and tree needs, with observation guiding decisions better than rigid schedules. The finger test works perfectly for checking moisture, pushing a finger 2 inches deep to feel whether soil is dry or still holding water. Mulching the pot surface dramatically reduces evaporation, keeping soil moist longer between watering sessions. A 2 to 3 inch mulch layer acts like a protective blanket that moderates soil temperature while conserving moisture. The Amish avoid overwatering just as carefully as underwatering, since soggy soil suffocates roots and promotes rot. Container drainage becomes critical because excess water needs somewhere to go rather than sitting around roots. Proper watering balances plant needs with soil capacity, maintaining consistent moisture without creating waterlogged conditions that kill trees slowly. The Amish also consider water temperature, allowing well or rainwater to warm slightly rather than shocking roots with ice-cold irrigation during hot weather. Consistent watering schedules help trees develop predictable growth patterns, though adjustments happen based on rainfall and temperature changes throughout seasons. Feeding trees naturally. Natural nutrition from compost, manure tea, and bone meal provides everything fruit trees need without synthetic chemicals. The Amish rely on these traditional amendments that build soil health while feeding plants gradually over time. Compost releases nutrients slowly as microbes break it down, providing steady nutrition rather than the feast or famine cycle of chemical fertilizers. Manure tea made by steeping aged manure in water creates liquid nutrition that roots absorb quickly during the growing season. Bone meal adds phosphorus and calcium that support root development and fruit production without the salt buildup that synthetic fertilizers cause. Light but consistent feeding throughout the growing season maintains steady growth without forcing excessive vegetation. Overfeeding trees is like giving kids unlimited candy. Lots of quick energy, but nothing good comes from it long term. Too much nitrogen creates lush, leafy growth at the expense of flowers and fruit, defeating the entire purpose of growing fruit trees. The Amish feed more heavily in spring when trees are actively growing and taper off as fall approaches and growth naturally slows. Excessive late-season feeding encourages new growth that won't harden off before winter, leading to frost damage and dieback. A top-up of fresh compost in early spring replaces nutrients used the previous year while adding organic matter that improves soil structure. Container soil degrades faster than ground soil since watering constantly leaches nutrients out the drainage holes. Natural feeding programs work with soil biology rather than bypassing it like synthetic fertilizers that can sterilize growing media. The beneficial fungi and bacteria in healthy soil help trees access nutrients that would otherwise remain locked in unavailable forms. Trees fed naturally develop more robust immune systems and handle pest pressure better than those dependent on chemical inputs. The investment in natural soil health pays dividends throughout the tree's life rather than creating dependency on constant fertilizer applications. Fish emulsion provides another natural nitrogen source that the Amish use occasionally for quick greening when trees show deficiency signs. Wood ash from heating stoves supplies potassium that improves fruit quality and disease resistance, though it must be used sparingly to avoid raising pH excessively. Smart mulching techniques. Mulch creates a protective layer that moderates soil temperature extremes while reducing moisture loss through evaporation. The Amish use straw, shredded leaves, and wood chips as mulch materials that eventually break down to improve soil quality. Summer mulch keeps roots cool during heat waves that would otherwise stress container trees confined in limited soil volume. Winter mulch provides insulation against freezing temperatures that penetrate pots faster than ground soil since containers lack Earth's thermal mass. 2 to 3 inches of mulch depth provides adequate protection without creating problems from excessive coverage. Mulch placed directly against tree trunks invites disease and pest problems by keeping bark constantly moist. The Amish maintain a few inches of clear space around the trunk while mulching the rest of the pot surface thoroughly. This gap allows bark to dry properly while still providing root zone benefits from the mulch layer. Organic mulches break down over time, requiring refreshing twice yearly to maintain effective coverage. Spring mulch application prepares for summer heat, while fall application protects roots heading into winter dormancy. Broken down mulch from previous applications gets mixed into the soil during refreshing, adding organic matter that improves structure and water retention. Different mulch materials offer varying benefits, with straw being light and easy to work with, while wood chips last longer between replacements. Shredded leaves from fall cleanup provide free mulch that enriches soil beautifully as they decompose. The Amish avoid colored or treated wood mulches that might contain chemicals harmful to food-producing trees. Natural mulches support the soil ecosystem by feeding earthworms and beneficial microbes that improve overall plant health. Proper mulching reduces watering frequency significantly, which saves time and helps trees develop more drought-tolerant root systems. Mulch also suppresses weed growth that would compete with trees for water and nutrients in the limited container space. The temperature buffering effect of mulch prevents the rapid heating and cooling cycles that stress roots and reduce their efficiency. Pine needles work excellently for acid-loving fruits like blueberries, slowly lowering pH as they decompose while providing all the standard mulch benefits. Pruning like a craftsman. Pruning shapes trees for maximum productivity while keeping them sized appropriately for container growing. The Amish approach pruning slowly and deliberately, using hand tools that give precise control over every cut. Pruning with power tools is like performing surgery with a chainsaw, technically possible, but probably not the best idea. Late winter timing takes advantage of dormancy when trees aren't actively growing and cuts heal cleanly without excessive sap loss. Pruning before spring growth starts allows you to see the tree's structure clearly without foliage blocking the view. The primary goals include controlling size, opening the canopy for light penetration, and removing problem branches that cross or crowd each other. Cross branches rub together, creating wounds that invite disease and insects into the tree's vascular system. Crowded branches block airflow and light from reaching interior growth, reducing overall productivity and creating conditions where fungal diseases thrive. Every cut serves a specific purpose rather than randomly removing wood just to make the tree smaller. The Amish cut just above outward-facing buds to encourage growth spreading away from the center rather than back into the crowded canopy. Clean cuts made at proper angles heal faster and seal better than ragged tears or cuts made at wrong positions. Sharp pruning tools are essential since dull blades crush tissue instead of slicing cleanly, creating larger wounds that take longer to heal. Proper pruning creates an open vase shape that allows light to reach all branches while maintaining structural strength for fruit loads. Container trees require more aggressive pruning than ground trees since restricted roots can't support as much top growth. Annual pruning keeps trees compact and manageable while directing energy into fruit production rather than excessive vegetative growth. The Amish teach that patient, thoughtful pruning improves trees progressively over years rather than trying to fix everything in one dramatic session. Understanding growth patterns helps predict where new shoots will emerge, allowing strategic cuts that guide development rather than just reacting to problems. Thinning cuts that remove entire branches back to their origin improve structure more than heading cuts that just shorten branches and stimulate bushy regrowth. Hand pollination secrets. Natural pollination depends on bees and wind that might not reach container trees positioned indoors or in sheltered locations. The Amish hand pollinate when natural pollinators are scarce, ensuring fruit set regardless of conditions outside human control. Soft brushes or cotton swabs transfer pollen from flower to flower, mimicking what bees accomplish naturally but with guaranteed coverage. The technique involves gently brushing anthers in one flower to collect yellow pollen, then transferring it to the sticky stigma in another flower. Trees with perfect flowers that contain both male and female parts can be self-pollinated by swirling the brush inside each bloom. Varieties requiring cross-pollination need pollen from a different compatible tree, which hand pollination can provide even when trees sit far apart. Morning timing works best when flowers are freshly opened and pollen is at peak viability before heat or humidity reduces effectiveness. The Amish work systematically through the tree rather than randomly hitting some flowers while missing others that remain unpollinated. This method increases yield dramatically when growing trees indoors during bloom time or in areas with poor pollinator populations. Patient, detailed work might seem tedious, but ensures consistent harvests instead of depending on chance encounters between flowers and insects. Hand pollination also lets you control exactly which varieties cross when growing multiple trees, allowing deliberate selection of desired fruit characteristics. The process creates connection with your trees that modern growers miss when depending entirely on nature's timing and randomness. Results become visible within days as pollinated flowers begin developing into tiny fruits while unpollinated ones drop off. Hand pollination particularly benefits early blooming varieties that flower before many pollinators are active in cool spring weather. The Amish keep records of which flowers they pollinated, helping track success rates and identify optimal timing for future seasons. Some fruit trees like figs don't require pollination at all, developing fruit parthenocarpically without fertilization, which simplifies container growing considerably. Supporting the branches. Fruit weight stresses branches that weren't designed to carry such heavy loads without some assistance. The Amish use wooden stakes, natural fiber twine, or small trellises to support heavily laden branches before they bend excessively or break. Gentle tying with soft materials prevents bark injury that creates entry points for disease and weakens branches long-term. Branches breaking under fruit weight after months of care feels like dropping your phone right after taking it out of the new case. Support structures get installed early as fruit develops rather than waiting until branches already droop dangerously low. Proactive support prevents the permanent bending that happens when branches stay stressed too long under heavy loads. The Amish tie loosely enough to allow some natural movement while providing enough support to prevent breakage during wind or when fruits swell rapidly. Natural twine works better than wire or plastic ties that can cut into bark as branches grow and expand. Support points should distribute weight across multiple locations rather than concentrating stress at single attachment points. Adjusting ties as fruit grows and gains weight prevents initially adequate support from becoming insufficient later in the season. Wooden stakes driven into the pot or placed alongside provide anchor points for supporting ties without damaging the tree itself. Branch support also improves fruit quality by preventing ground contact that exposes fruit to soil-borne diseases and pest damage. Properly supported branches maintain better angles for sunlight exposure, helping fruit ripen evenly and develop full color. The temporary effort of installing supports pays off in preserved branch structure and increased harvest from trees that can safely carry full loads. Dwarf trees particularly benefit from support since their smaller branch structure wasn't designed for the fruit loads that good care produces. The Amish remove supports after harvest, allowing branches to return to natural positions and preventing ties from becoming embedded in growing bark. Repotting without stress. Container trees eventually outgrow their pots as roots fill available space and begin circling or matting densely. The Amish repot every 2 to 3 years, providing fresh soil and more room before trees become severely root-bound. Severely root-bound trees show declining vigor with yellowing leaves and reduced growth despite adequate water and nutrients. Spring repotting allows trees to recover during the upcoming growing season when conditions favor rapid root establishment. The Amish carefully loosen root balls before placing trees in larger containers, teasing apart compacted roots that circled the old pot. This root disruption stimulates new growth that quickly explores fresh soil and restores vigorous uptake of water and nutrients. Circling or dead roots get pruned away cleanly, removing damaged tissue that can harbor disease while encouraging healthy new root development. Fresh soil replaces depleted material from the old pot, replenishing nutrients and organic matter that containers lose over time. The new pot should be only a few inches larger than the old one rather than dramatically oversized. Excessive pot size creates problems with soil staying too wet in areas roots haven't reached yet. Proper repotting depth positions the trunk at the same level it sat before, avoiding both too deep, which suffocates roots, and too shallow, which exposes them. The Amish water thoroughly after repotting to settle soil around roots and eliminate air pockets that cause drying. Trees may show some transplant stress initially, but recover quickly when repotting is done carefully during appropriate timing. Maintaining repotting schedules prevents the severe root binding that makes the process traumatic and recovery slow. The Amish inspect roots during repotting for signs of disease or pest damage that might require treatment before placing the tree in fresh soil. Root health assessment during repotting provides valuable information about overall tree condition that's impossible to see otherwise. Pest control Amish style. Chemical pesticides have no place in Amish fruit growing, which relies instead on prevention and natural controls. Healthy plants grown in living soil resist pest pressure far better than stressed trees that attract problems like magnets. Companion planting with herbs like mint, basil, or chives creates aromatic barriers that confuse and repel many common fruit tree pests. These herbs also attract beneficial insects that prey on pests, creating natural control without any human intervention. Plants defending themselves with companion herbs is nature's version of a neighborhood watch program. Strong-smelling herbs mask the scents that pests use to locate host plants, causing them to search elsewhere for food. Mint planted around pot bases deters ants and aphids while providing useful harvest for tea and cooking. Basil near citrus trees helps repel flying insects while benefiting from the same watering schedule and sun exposure. The Amish resort to neem oil or mild soap water mixtures only when infestations threaten serious damage despite preventive measures. Neem acts as both repellent and mild insecticide without the toxicity of synthetic chemicals that kill beneficial insects along with pests. Soap water sprays suffocate soft-bodied pests like aphids and mites by coating their bodies and blocking breathing pores. These interventions work best when applied early before populations explode beyond natural control capacity. Regular inspection catches pest problems while they're still minor and manageable with simple interventions. The Amish check both upper and lower leaf surfaces where many pests hide and feed away from casual observation. Clean soil and proper plant spacing prevent many problems before they start by eliminating conditions where pests and diseases thrive. Strong trees with good nutrition and appropriate water shrug off pest pressure that would devastate weak or stressed specimens. Encouraging beneficial insects like ladybugs and lacewings through diverse plantings creates biological control that works continuously without human effort. Disease prevention starts early. Airflow through the canopy prevents the humid, stagnant conditions where fungal diseases flourish and spread rapidly. The Amish avoid overcrowding pots together so tightly that air can't circulate freely between trees. Proper spacing might seem wasteful of space, but prevents disease spread that can wipe out entire collections in humid weather. Regular leaf inspection catches early signs of disease like spots, discoloration, or unusual patterns before infection becomes systemic. Early intervention stops localized problems from spreading throughout the tree and potentially to neighboring plants. Fallen leaves get removed promptly rather than accumulating on the soil surface where they harbor fungal spores and bacterial populations. Diseased foliage that drops naturally represents the tree attempting to isolate infection, and removing it completes that defense strategy. The Amish rake away dropped leaves and add them to hot compost piles where high temperatures kill pathogens before material returns to gardens. Healthy compost additions and balanced watering build plant resistance by supporting robust immune systems that fight off infections naturally. Trees stressed by drought, waterlogging, or nutrient deficiency become susceptible to diseases that healthy trees resist easily. Balanced watering that keeps soil consistently moist but never waterlogged prevents root diseases that start in saturated conditions. The Amish maintain soil pH appropriate for each tree species, since incorrect acidity levels stress plants and encourage certain diseases. Proper pruning that opens the canopy and removes dead wood eliminates hiding places where disease organisms overwinter between seasons. Prevention through good cultural practices works far better than trying to cure diseases after they've established throughout a tree system. Sanitation practices, including cleaning pruning tools between cuts, prevent accidentally spreading disease from infected to healthy branches. The Amish dip pruners in diluted bleach solution when working with diseased wood, killing pathogens that might transfer to subsequent cuts. Amish sunlight tricks. Seasonal tree movement optimizes light exposure throughout the year as the sun's angle changes dramatically between summer and winter. Summer placement outdoors captures long days and intense light that drives maximum growth and fruit development. Winter positioning near warmth sources maintains health during dormancy when trees still need some light but can't tolerate extreme cold. The Amish move trees multiple times annually based on seasonal needs rather than leaving them in one spot regardless of changing conditions. Reflective white surfaces or light-colored walls bounce additional light onto shaded sides of trees, effectively increasing total light exposure. Strategic positioning near white buildings or fences brightens growing conditions without requiring the tree to sit in constant direct sun. This reflected light provides gentler illumination that benefits trees struggling with intense afternoon sun that stresses rather than helps. The Amish avoid extreme heat that dries container soil rapidly and burns foliage, positioning trees where they receive morning sun but afternoon shade during peak summer. Positioning decisions come from observing how individual trees respond rather than relying on gadgets or generic recommendations. Trees with pale leaves might need less intense light, while those growing slowly toward the light source need rotation for balance. Sun exposure requirements vary by species, with citrus craving maximum light while figs tolerate some shade. The Amish track sun patterns throughout seasons, noting how shadows move and light intensity changes as the sun's path shifts. This observation guides placement decisions that maximize productivity while preventing sun stress that weakens trees and reduces harvests. Light-colored gravel or paving beneath pots reflects upward light that illuminates lower branches, typically shaded by upper canopy. Understanding the relationship between light angle and photosynthesis efficiency helps optimize placement for maximum energy capture during critical growing periods. Cold weather protection. Winter exposes container roots to freezing temperatures that in-ground trees avoid through soil's insulating properties. The Amish wrap pots with burlap or straw during cold months, protecting roots from temperature extremes that damage or kill them. Burlap creates insulating airspace between fabric and pot while allowing moisture to escape so roots don't rot in damp conditions. Straw packed around containers provides even better insulation through trapped air spaces within the material structure. Grouping trees close together creates shared warmth and wind protection, mimicking how forest trees shelter each other naturally. The combined mass of multiple trees moderates temperature swings that individual containers experience when isolated and exposed. Some trees get moved inside cold frames or unheated sheds where protection from wind and precipitation moderates conditions without providing actual heat. These structures prevent rapid temperature cycling that's more damaging than sustained cold that trees can acclimate to gradually. Snow packed around pots acts as natural insulation, maintaining steady temperatures near freezing rather than cycling through harsh swings. The Amish allow snow to accumulate naturally rather than clearing it away from protected trees. Dormant trees need cold for proper rest, but can't tolerate the extreme cold that penetrates unprotected containers rapidly. Root zone protection matters more than air temperature since tops go dormant but roots remain somewhat active even in winter. Hardy varieties survive with minimal protection, while tender types require more elaborate measures like complete indoor storage. The Amish match protection intensity to variety needs rather than treating all trees identically regardless of their cold tolerance. Evergreen boughs laid over pots provide both insulation and wind protection while allowing air circulation that prevents disease in storage areas. Training and shaping. Young trees benefit from gentle training that guides growth into productive shapes without requiring heavy corrective pruning later. The Amish use soft twine or wooden stakes to position branches at favorable angles for fruiting and light distribution. Dwarf trees trained into open vase shapes produce more fruit because light penetrates throughout the canopy rather than just hitting outer leaves. Early training works with flexible young wood that bends easily, while waiting until branches harden requires cutting rather than redirecting. Training starts in the tree's second year after roots have established enough to support top growth modification. The Amish tie branches to stakes positioned around the pot, creating framework that spreads growth outward rather than letting it shoot straight up. Outward growth creates wider canopies with more fruiting surface area while keeping overall height manageable for container culture. Training trees early is like teaching kids good habits, much easier than trying to fix bad patterns that have been growing for years. Stakes get adjusted gradually over weeks, moving branches incrementally into desired positions without shocking them through sudden dramatic bending. Gentle training prevents the bark splitting and tissue damage that happens when branches get forced beyond their flexibility limits. Well-trained trees develop balanced structure naturally as they mature, requiring less corrective pruning throughout their lives. The shapes created through training also improve access for harvesting and maintenance without needing ladders or difficult reaching. Training creates both functional and attractive trees that produce reliably while enhancing rather than cluttering growing spaces. The time invested in proper training returns value for the entire life of the tree through improved productivity and easier management. Branch angles affect fruiting, with horizontal or slightly downward angled branches producing more fruit than vertical growth that stays vegetative longer. Amish compost tea. Recipe: compost tea transforms aged compost into liquid nutrition that roots absorb rapidly for quick response to feeding needs. The Amish brew this tea by steeping finished compost in water for several days, creating a nutrient-rich solution teeming with beneficial microbes. The brewing process extracts soluble nutrients while multiplying beneficial bacteria and fungi populations through the warm, moist environment. A simple recipe uses 1 part finished compost to 5 parts water in a bucket, stirring occasionally over 3 to 5 days. The resulting brown liquid contains nutrients in forms that roots can use immediately without waiting for soil microbes to break down solid materials. The microbial population in properly brewed tea colonizes root zones and soil, improving nutrient cycling and helping trees resist diseases. The Amish pour this tea at the base of trees during the growing season, providing nutrition boosts when trees are actively growing. Compost tea replaces synthetic liquid fertilizers completely while building soil health rather than bypassing or degrading it. The living organisms in the tea continue working after application, breaking down organic matter and making nutrients available over time. Brewing creates far more feeding power from limited compost than just top-dressing solid material, making it especially valuable for container growing. The tea can be diluted further if it seems too strong, with darker color indicating higher concentration. Regular compost tea applications throughout the growing season maintain steady nutrition without the boom and bust cycle of single large feedings. Trees fed with compost tea develop stronger root systems and show improved resistance to both pest and disease pressure compared to chemically fed specimens. Aeration during brewing by stirring or using aquarium pumps multiplies beneficial aerobic bacteria while suppressing harmful anaerobic organisms that create foul odors. Recognizing stress signs. Container trees communicate stress through visible symptoms that attentive growers catch before problems become serious. Yellow leaves indicate either excessive watering that suffocates roots or poor drainage that creates waterlogged conditions. The Amish distinguish between these causes by checking soil moisture and drainage hole flow after watering sessions. Wilting during full sun can signal root-bound conditions where insufficient roots can't supply water despite adequate soil moisture. It can also indicate low nutrients where weak roots lack the energy to move water efficiently even when it's available. Brown leaf edges suggest salt buildup from hard water or excessive fertilizer, while overall paleness points to nutrient deficiency. The Amish act early when they spot these signals, adjusting watering frequency, improving drainage, or addressing nutrition before damage becomes severe. Daily observation catches small details like reduced growth rate or fewer flowers forming, indicators that casual weekly checks would miss. Changes happen gradually, making frequent observation essential for noticing trends before they escalate into obvious problems. Early intervention fixes most issues easily, while waiting until symptoms are dramatic often means permanent damage has occurred. Stress signs also guide adjustments to placement, watering, or feeding schedules based on individual tree responses rather than rigid guidelines. Trees showing sun stress get moved to shadier locations, while those growing slowly might need more light exposure. The Amish trust their observations and adjust care accordingly rather than following inflexible rules that ignore plant feedback. Leaf drop during growing season signals severe stress, requiring immediate investigation and correction before the tree declines further. Root pruning for longevity. Periodic root pruning keeps container trees compact and productive for decades in the same size pots. Every few years during repotting, the Amish trim outer roots to remove circling growth and stimulate fresh root development. This pruning prevents trees from becoming pot-bound to the point where roots strangle each other and uptake declines. Hand pruners work better than saws for root work, creating clean cuts that heal quickly without the tearing damage that saws can cause. The outer inch or two of root mass gets removed all around the root ball, taking away the oldest, least efficient roots. Fresh compost fills the space created by root removal, providing renewed nutrition and structure for new root growth. Root pruning shocks trees temporarily, but they recover quickly and often show improved vigor from the stimulation. This technique allows keeping trees in the same manageable pot size indefinitely, rather than constantly moving to larger containers. Timing matters enormously, with early spring before growth starts being ideal for root pruning operations. Pruning roots during active growth stresses trees severely and can cause dieback or even death if done at wrong times. The Amish coordinate root pruning with top pruning, balancing above and below ground growth for optimal results. Reduced root mass supports less top growth, making simultaneous pruning of both parts maintain proper proportions. Root pruning also improves flowering and fruiting in some species by creating mild stress that triggers reproductive responses. The practice requires confidence, but becomes routine after the first successful experience demonstrates how well trees respond. Bonsai techniques adapted for fruit trees use similar root pruning principles, keeping trees small while maintaining productivity through careful balance of root and canopy size. The Amish observe that root pruned trees often produce better quality fruit since limited roots concentrate energy into fewer but superior fruits rather than trying to support excessive crops. The right neighbors. Companion planting creates beneficial relationships where different plants improve each other's growth and pest resistance. The Amish observe which combinations work well through generations of experience and trial and error learning. Apples grow particularly well with strawberries planted at the pot's base, utilizing space while providing living mulch that suppresses weeds. Fig trees benefit from nearby herbs that repel pests and complement the fig's growing requirements for water and sun. Good companion plants are like good neighbors. They help each other out and don't compete over the fence line. Certain combinations attract pollinators naturally, bringing bees and other beneficial insects that ensure good fruit set. Flowers planted near fruit trees provide nectar that feeds pollinators when fruit blossoms aren't available, maintaining pollinator populations throughout the season. The Amish avoid pairing trees that compete intensely for water or nutrients, which would stress both plants and reduce productivity. Heavy feeders shouldn't share pots with other heavy feeders unless you're prepared to dramatically increase nutrition inputs. Companion plants also help control pests and diseases by providing habitat for beneficial insects that prey on problem species. Diversity creates stability, where problems affecting one species don't devastate the entire planting. Herbs like thyme and oregano planted around pot bases provide aromatic pest deterrents while offering useful harvests. These combinations require understanding each plant's needs to ensure compatibility rather than conflict over limited container resources. The right neighbors transform isolated pots into mini ecosystems that function more efficiently than single species growing. Nasturtiums planted near fruit trees serve as trap crops, attracting aphids away from valuable fruit production while adding edible flowers to salads. Companion planting also considers root depths, pairing shallow-rooted companions with deep-rooted trees to maximize use of available soil volume without excessive competition. Managing young trees. Young saplings need gentle care and protection while establishing root systems that will support future growth and production. The Amish shade young trees lightly during their first season, protecting tender bark and leaves from intense sun that overwhelms immature plants. Gradual acclimation to full sun over several weeks prevents the shock and burning that happens when young trees face immediate full exposure. Direct wind stresses young trees severely by stripping moisture from leaves faster than developing roots can replace it. Wind protection using temporary screens or strategic placement near buildings helps young trees establish without constant stress. Regular small watering helps develop deeper root systems rather than training roots to stay shallow where moisture sits. The Amish water young trees more frequently than established ones since smaller root systems can't reach as much soil moisture. These frequent waterings should still be thorough, encouraging roots to follow moisture downward rather than just wetting the surface. A layer of compost added in the tree's second year boosts strength as the plant transitions from establishment to active growth and potential flowering. Young trees benefit from patience, with the Amish resisting urges to force rapid growth through excessive feeding. Slow, steady development creates stronger trees with better structure than forced growth that produces weak, succulent tissue. The first 2 years establish the foundation for decades of production, making this period worth extra attention and care. Young trees also need protection from curious pets or children who might damage tender bark or break delicate branches. Staking young trees provides support against wind while preventing the rocking motion that can loosen roots and slow establishment. Stakes should allow some movement though, since gentle flexing strengthens trunk development better than rigid support that prevents all natural motion. Harvesting the Amish way. Knowing when to harvest comes from experience and attention to how fruit detaches from branches. The Amish harvest only when fruits release easily from stems with gentle twisting, indicating full ripeness. Forcing unripe fruit from trees causes damage to spurs that produce next year's crop. Early morning harvesting captures fruits at peak freshness when overnight cooling has set sugars and firmed flesh. Morning temperatures also make harvest work more comfortable and fruit handles better without heat stress. Gentle handling prevents bruising that dramatically shortens storage life and reduces fruit quality even when damage isn't immediately visible. The Amish cup each fruit in their palm during picking, supporting weight, rather than pulling, which can tear stems and damage fruiting wood. Fruit stored in cool, shaded areas last longer than those going directly into warm kitchens or sunny counters. Traditional root cellars provide ideal storage conditions with cool temperatures and moderate humidity that extend freshness for weeks. The Amish avoid refrigeration when possible since extremely cold temperatures can damage texture and flavor in some fruit varieties. Harvest timing varies by species, with some fruits like apples improving after picking, while others like peaches must ripen on the tree. Regular checking during ripening season prevents overripe fruit from dropping and being lost to rot or pests. Sequential harvesting over several weeks captures fruit as it reaches peak ripeness rather than taking everything in one session. This approach maximizes quality since not all fruit ripens simultaneously, even on the same tree. Clean harvesting that removes all ripe fruit also reduces pest attraction since dropped or overripe fruit draws insects and animals. The Amish clean and inspect fruit immediately after harvest, separating damaged pieces for immediate use from perfect specimens for storage. Proper harvest technique maintains fruit quality from tree to table, preserving the work invested throughout the growing season. Learning the subtle signs of ripeness for each variety takes time but dramatically improves harvest quality and storage success. Using what you grow. Nothing from Amish fruit trees goes to waste since every piece serves some purpose in the household economy. Perfectly ripe fruit gets consumed fresh, capturing peak nutrition and flavor that diminishes quickly after harvest. Slightly overripe or blemished fruit becomes jam, jelly, or preserves that store for months and provides sweetness through winter. The transformation of fresh fruit into preserved forms allows enjoying summer abundance during cold months when fresh fruit is unavailable. Fruit that's too soft for eating fresh makes excellent syrup for pancakes and desserts, requiring nothing but cooking down with minimal sugar. Fruit scraps, including peels and cores, go into vinegar production, creating useful household product from parts others might discard. The Amish simmer these scraps with water and a bit of sugar, allowing natural fermentation to produce tangy vinegar over several weeks. Fallen or damaged fruit that can't be salvaged for human use gets composted, returning nutrients to fuel next year's growth. This composting completes the cycle where the tree receives back what it produced, maintaining soil fertility without external inputs. Amish families share abundant harvests within their community, strengthening social bonds while ensuring nothing spoils from excess. Sharing also spreads risk since different families' trees might succeed or struggle in any given year. The goal remains sustainability, where the system perpetuates itself rather than depending on constant external inputs. Productivity matters, but only within the context of maintaining long-term viability and community well-being. Dried fruit provides another preservation method that concentrates flavors while creating portable snacks that store for months without special conditions. The Amish use solar drying racks during summer, letting sun and air naturally dehydrate fruit slices without energy inputs. Fruit leather made from pureed fruit spread thin and dried creates treats that children love while using up odd pieces too small for other purposes. Every processing method adds value by extending usability beyond the brief fresh season when fruit comes off the tree. Patience, the final trick. Fruit trees in pots take 2 to 4 years before producing steady, reliable harvests that justify the investment and care. The Amish view this waiting period as part of the reward rather than an obstacle to be avoided or rushed through. Young trees need time establishing root systems strong enough to support fruiting without compromising their own health and development. Forcing early fruit production weakens trees and reduces their ultimate size and productivity over their lifetime. The Amish often remove flowers during the first year or two, redirecting energy into growth rather than premature fruiting. This sacrifice of immediate gratification builds stronger trees that produce abundantly for decades once they mature. Patience extends beyond just waiting for first fruits to include the daily care that accumulates slowly into results. Consistent watering, proper feeding, and regular maintenance seem insignificant on any given day, but compound into healthy, productive trees. The Amish see patience as discipline and steadiness rather than passive waiting, actively caring while accepting natural timelines. This perspective transforms waiting from frustration into purposeful preparation, where every small action contributes to eventual success. Trees respond to patient, consistent care far better than sporadic, intense attention followed by neglect. The daily rhythm of checking, watering, and observing creates connection with plants that improves outcomes through better understanding. Growing fruit trees teaches patience in ways that few modern activities can match, requiring trust in natural processes that can't be rushed. The Amish recognize they're growing more than fruit through this process, developing character traits that benefit all aspects of life. Discipline learned through tree care transfers to other endeavors where steady effort produces results that shortcuts never achieve. The waiting period also allows learning tree behavior and needs before the added complexity of fruit production demands even more attention. Patience with container fruit trees mirrors patience required in all worthy long-term projects where foundations built carefully support future success. Understanding that first-year growth focuses on roots rather than visible top growth helps maintain realistic expectations during establishment phases. The Amish celebrate small milestones like successful overwintering or strong spring growth, finding satisfaction in progress rather than only valuing final harvests. This perspective makes the journey enjoyable rather than just enduring delays until reaching some distant goal. Young trees that establish well during patient early care often outperform rushed trees that produced early but never developed proper foundations. The investment of time and attention during non-productive years returns many times over once trees reach full bearing maturity and produce for decades. Container fruit growing ultimately succeeds or fails based on the grower's willingness to work within natural rhythms rather than forcing artificial timelines that stress plants beyond their capacity to adapt. The Amish way of growing fruit trees in pots reminds us that simplicity often beats modern complexity. They don't chase quick results or depend on chemical boosters, just steady care, patience, and nature's rhythm. These time-tested tricks show how much can grow from so little, turning quiet corners into thriving harvests.